The Ninghai-class light cruiser was the most advanced and largest warship in China during the Sino-Japanese War. It was used as the main force of the Navy in the Battle of Jiangyin in 1937, where it was damaged and sunk, then salvaged and repaired by the Japanese, and deployed as a second-class cruiser in the Pacific Theater, where it was sunk again. In January 1931, the Chinese government proposed to purchase a light cruiser from Japan. At that time, the Japanese Navy was already a powerful maritime force with rich experience in shipbuilding. However, the type of light cruiser the central government wanted was very different from the international mainstream. At that time, the central military was not highly united with the local warlords. In order to deter them, the Navy did not expect the warship to function as a true cruiser. Since the other warlords did not have decent warships, the Ninghai-class was actually heavily armed, designed to deter land-based targets. In line with this thinking, the lead ship of the Ninghai-class, the Ninghai, with a displacement of only 2,958 tons, was equipped with 3 twin 140mm naval guns, 6 76mm anti-aircraft guns, 10 machine guns, 4 torpedo tubes, depth charge equipment, and 2 seaplanes, making it practically a mini battleship among ships of the same class. However, compared to a true cruiser, it was more of a showy product. The excessive emphasis on firepower led to a high center of gravity and poor resistance to wind and waves, suitable only for sailing in rivers or near the coast. It had an output of 10,579 horsepower and a maximum speed of 23.2 knots. Before the completion of the Ninghai, the September 18 incident erupted, causing tension between the two countries. The Navy did not participate in the subsequent conflict with the Japanese in order to avoid affecting the normal acquisition of the Ninghai. This was looked down upon by the Chinese people. Ironically, during the September 18 incident, the Japanese occupied northeast China, and the payment method proposed for purchasing the Ninghai was to use northeast soybeans at market prices, totaling 4.32 million yuan. The transaction was not completed, and the soybean production source was occupied by the invaders. The Navy had to suffer through this, as the official declaration of war had not yet been made. In August 1932, the Ninghai returned to China, where it was warmly welcomed in Shanghai. For the people who were used to seeing foreign warships, seeing their own state-of-the-art warship was very heartening. As for the actual combat power, few people at the time could understand it. After all, the more and bigger the guns, the better, and in this respect, it was quite successful. According to the plan, another ship of the same class, Pinghai, was planned to be built at the Jiangnan shipyard in Shanghai. The keel was laid in June 1931, and Japanese engineer Itagaki Tsunan was hired for the project. The ship's components were purchased from Japan and installed in Japan after its launch. At the time, the production of the second ship domestically faced many obstacles, especially in the supply of parts, which was not surprising, given that a large-scale war between the two countries was only a matter of time. In 1936, the Pinghai completed its hull construction and went to Japan to have its guns installed. Japan agreed to install the 140mm main guns but refused to install anti-aircraft guns, so the Navy had to purchase and install Bofors anti-aircraft guns externally. Compared to the Ninghai, the Pinghai had a slightly smaller displacement of 2,383 tons, and it did not have seaplanes. Its maximum speed was also only 21 knots. With the outbreak of the Marco Polo Bridge incident in 1937, the Ninghai and Pinghai, as the main force of the Navy at the time, led a group of elderly and weak soldiers to the mouth of the Yangtze River. The original plan was to allow the Japanese fleet to enter the Yangtze River and then block the mouth of the river, coordinating with the army to ambush the Japanese. Unfortunately, this plan was betrayed by traitors, and the Battle of Jiangyin became a battle to prevent the Japanese from entering the Yangtze River. In the battle with the Japanese Air Force, both ships were hit and sunk after shooting down and damaging many enemy aircraft. After the Battle of Shanghai ended, the Japanese salvaged and repaired the two ships. The Ninghai was renamed Wazandeo, and the Pinghai was renamed Bashideo, and they were ultimately sent to Japan to be used as training ships. In 1944, as the Japanese suffered successive defeats in the Pacific, the Navy suffered heavy losses. At this time, the Japanese deployed the Wazandeo and Bashideo as second-class cruisers, and both ships were subsequently sunk near Hachiho Island and Luzon Island.